Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Super Tees video. And right when I did a review of what was posted as the final patch notes for 11.0.7, they send a huge sledgehammer of changes for the game for both PvE and PvP. And this was the type of content that I was really dying to see. So we're going to cover it in today's video and start looking at what could possibly happen as far as viability of specializations moving forward as a result of this. And I do think, based on the reactions that I've seen from other content creators on Twitter, that this is a very substantial one. This is very important to know about. So for Unholy Death Knights, Apocalypse Ghouls are going to be doing 30% more damage. Rotten Touch now increases the damage of your Scourge Strike to the target by 60%, up from 50. And remember, in the previous iteration, they got a PvP buff to this. So this is like another layering on top of that. Death Coil is just getting a minor increase as well of 8% damage. Scourge Strike, Clawing Shadows, and Vampiric Strike damage have been increased by 10%. So a little bit of buffs as well towards the Sand Lane hero talent tree, which is the type of changes I wanted to see as far as trying to even out, potentially scoping different hero talent builds. So overall, this seems to be decently substantial towards Unholy Death Knight. I think mostly the Death Coil. I don't think the ghoul damage is going to be a huge amount. But obviously, like, this double stacking of Scourge Strike is going to be decent, and this Death Coil is going to be decent. So really good change for Unholy, and that's going to benefit them in the game across the board, not just PvP. For Demon Hunters, Fellblade is going to be doing 10% more damage. The Hunt's initial hit, so the big hit, is going to be doing 10% more. Chaos Strike and Annihilation are also going to be doing 10% more damage. And Demon Bite and Demon Blades are doing 10% more damage. So this is right in line, I think, with when I made a video talking about the patch notes that I would like to see, increasing just their baseline abilities. And this is pretty substantial. Like, this is 10% across the board. Like, this seems like a lot. This seems like way more than what Demon Hunter got in the last round of changes, for PvP especially, but obviously in PvE, you're going to like this as well. So this is a pretty big win right now for Unholy and Demon Hunter. For Devastation Evoker, they're getting 4% damage increase, but not in PvP. I think that's fair right now. I just made a Devastation. I'm going to do a 2400 challenge on my stream. If you want to follow along with that journey, it's linked in the description. I think that makes sense. I was doing like 1 million DPS pretty consistently. Pyre, though, will be doing 20% more, which is kind of hit or miss. I think you fire off a Pyre when you activate Dragon Rage. So it's like a little bit more damage during Dragon Rage, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal in PvP. Just like fire red dragon builds are just not that great. So not really too much here going on for Devastation, at least in PvP. For Marksmanship Hunter, Trick Shots damage percentage increased to 75%, up from 65. Razor Fragments AoE damage percentage increased to 35 from 25. Dark Ranger Black Arrow is getting buffed by 15%. Shadow Surge damage is getting buffed by 25%, and Bleak Powder damage is getting increased by 25%. So the biggest one to me is Black Arrow, because it was hitting really hard as Beastmaster until they nerfed it, and it's still hitting decently hard. So buffing this is like your kill pressure, and when you get random procs for it, I think it's going to make Dark Ranger a lot more appealing. These other changes, I want to say, are going to have a lot more impact in PvE, obviously, due to the AoE nature of them. And same kind of thing goes for maybe Shadow Surge. You're probably going to feel it in PvP a bit, but it's better than nothing, and we haven't got to the PvP section either, so maybe there is a little bit more tagged in there. For Holy Paladins, Veneration now transfers 225% of the damage done into healing. It was 200% before. Saved by the Light absorb amount increased by 15%, but not in PvP. Consecrate's going to do 30% more damage. Lightsmith, Tempered in battle, no longer activates while the Paladin is within crowd control. I think this is like the redirected type of Spirit Link healing. So maybe this is why they've been so strong. I feel like Paladin, at least in PvP, has been like so oppressive. Tempered in battle no longer activates if its target is in Cyclone, Detainment, Imprison, or Diamond Ice Freezing Trap. So you're able to heal while you were in CC passively, I'm assuming, from this. And I saw a lot of Paladins re-rolling to Lightsmith, so this is really good targeting this, bringing it down a bit. And then obviously this is, there are some talents I think that make Consecrate do more damage. I don't know if this is enough to make you actually care. I think it's more like a PvE thing, to be making Consecrate do 30% more damage. For Holy Priests, you got another buff to Flash Heal of 15% and Holy Fire by 15%. I would have really liked to see Shadowward Pain getting buffed, because I've had matches where I'll keep Shadowward Pain up for a good significant portion of a game, and it does like 3% of my damage. It's very pathetic, the amount of damage it does. So I would have really liked to see Shadowward Pain included on this. Obviously, the burst damage from this will be nice, but you don't really have any sustained damage. And getting the healer damage profiles a little bit more even with each other, I actually think is the most important thing to do. Because unfortunately, I think in PvE and PvP, the most important contribution is the damage from the healers. So if you're a healer that doesn't have any sustained damage, you won't compete with the healers that do. Although this is definitely better than nothing. And Holy Priests are struggling, so this will be interesting to see how it plays out. But also know if they buff DKs and Demon Hunters, Holy Priest is probably one of the easiest healers to train down. So if it's a Zug Fest, you're going to get Zugged. So I don't know. That could be counteracted pretty easily with the DK and the Demon Hunter buffs. For Resto Shaman, Totemic Surging Totem is going to cost 25% less mana. I don't think in PvP it was a really big deal. And I also thought that Totemic was like, you spam played this in PvE, so I'm really surprised that they changed this and didn't do anything to Farseer. For Affliction, Haunt is getting a 75% increase. Of course, not in PvP because that would be ridiculous. Focused Malignancy now causes Malefic Rapture to deal 25% increased damage to target suffering from Unstable Affliction, up from 15, but not in PvP. Oblivion is getting a 25% buff, so this is kind of, might want to try the one-shot a little bit. Xavius's Gambit now increases the damage of Unstable Affliction by 20%, up from 15. I don't remember where this talent lines up. I think, is this lined up with like the crit build? It's possible that this lines up with the crit build. I'd have to look. I haven't been on my Warlock in a while since I got 2400, but 5% on UA, not bad. Perpetual Unstability damage increased by 25%. I'm gonna be real with you. I have no idea what that is. Perpetual Instability. If you guys know what that is in the comments down below, let me know. I want to say it's not a huge deal. I think it's probably just some passive thing. Siphon Life now increases corruption damage by 30%, up from 20. Interesting. I think you're still making a choice between this, between permanent affliction or permanent corruption. But an extra 10% could be decent. I doubt that it would be worth trading off because affliction is so global intensive. But interesting. I think these were mostly aimed at trying to get affliction more viable in what I would assume is single target for PvE. Considering almost all of it is oriented around single target. Now for PvP, okay, we're looking at some hero talents. So for Blood Death Knight, Reaper's Mark is going to do 20% more damage, and Wave of Souls is going to do 20% more damage for Blood Death Knight. And for Frost, Reaper's Mark is going to do 20% more damage, and Wave of Souls is also going to do 20% more damage. So obviously Frost made a big comeback in the last round of tuning, but nobody was playing Deathbringer. They were all playing Riders of the Apocalypse. If they can get the mark, this mark to hit really hard, it definitely fits way better into the burst profile of Frost DK. So I like that they're looking at the hero talents that are underrepresented. I think this is good. Don't know if it's 100% enough, but I definitely think it's good. They're actually buffing Elune's Chosen pack. I really liked the Starfire build on Boomkin before, and then they nerfed it. It was like, I have to spam hardcast Starfires for this build to be viable. Why is my Starfire hitting less than like an Ice Lance now? So they're kind of rewinding some of the nerfs they made to that. So Starfire is going to likely hit, it's going to hit about 18% harder. If you want to run Elune's Chosen. This is definitely a change that's going to intrigue me to test that talent out now. Resto Druid, you actually got a buff. Your name is on this list, and it's a buff, and you get to keep it. It's not removed in PvP. You're getting a 5% healing increase. For augmentation, they're nerfing Deep Breath. I don't think it was Deep Breath that was the problem. Okay, this one's probably... Molten Embers increases damage taken from black spells by up to 20%, down from 40% in PvP combat. I think this was the main one that procced like 10 eruptions while you're deep breathing. They're just one-shot. So they're deleting the augmentation one-shot. They're buffing healers. They're buffing some hero talents. This is good so far. Sun Fury, also underrepresented hero talent tree. Burden of Power now increases the damage of your next Pyroblast or Arcane Blast by 40%, up from 20. Curious how this would line up with Touch of the Magi. I played Arcane. I've been having an absolute blast with it. I might have to try this because I wonder how that's going to synergize with Presence of Mind and Touch of the Magi with Arcane Blast damage. Getting a 20% increase, getting doubled from this. It could be decent, but the Spell Slinger, just the vibe of the Spell Slinger, just there's just arcane missiles everywhere. It's like hard to trade that up, but you can also summon in a Phoenix, so maybe the Phoenix will be cool. Gonna probably give it a go. I don't know if that's enough though. Arcane Blast, it's a big portion of your burst damage, but it's not a huge portion of your sustain, so I don't know if it'll be enough. Mistweaver, Conduit of the Celestial Conduit healing increased by 50% in PvP combat, so Mistweaver buffs as well. I think I'm trying to remember how many Mistweavers I've seen playing Celestial Conduits. It's like every once in a while I see them. I think it's mostly Fistweavers, so it's like a buff towards Fistweavers. Windwalker's getting some damage profile redistribution. Fist of Fury damage increased by 30%, but Blackout Kick is going down by 15%. So it's going to be a little bit more outplayable damage because you can obviously crowd control the monk on their Fist of Fury. But if you don't, or they find an opening, it's going to be more devastating. I think there's more gameplay around that mechanic than Blackout Kick. That's just going to hit you. Touch of Karma now absorbs up to 50% of maximum health, down from 80. So they're nerfing your defense a bit. And I think in PvP that was definitely something that needed to be looked at because Windwalker was... If you use your cooldowns, it's pretty unkillable. So I think this is like a fair nerf to that. Shadow Pan, Flurry Strike, Shadow Damage from Wisdom of the Wall increased by 30% PP combat. I don't think any Windwalkers have been playing Shadow Pan. I think I've seen them all playing Celestial. Don't know if that's enough to turn it over. Maybe there's some Fists of Fury talents in that hero talent tree. I've basically next to no experience on Monk, so if anybody knows for the hero talents, if there's like Fists of Fury focus, then this 30% could be like double dipping into that and maybe giving you a more viable option for Shadow Pan. But I like that we're looking at the hero talents that people are basically ignoring. Discipline Priest, Void Weaver is getting some attention. Void Weaver is one of the coolest hero talent trees. I think that's probably why they nerfed it so much, because they expected everyone to play it because it was going to be so popular. But then it was just bad, so no one could play it. So Inner Quietus increases Powered Shield's absorption by 40%, up from 20. I think that's important that they're looking at just the overall sustain healing from the hero talent tree, because that's the main advantage of Oracle. It just gives you so much overall sustain. Whereas Void Weaver, it's like it's cool, cheeky, you punch out the void, but then your overall sustain drops off a cliff. So I think this is right. Don't know if it's enough, but I definitely think it's the right direction. We'll have to wait and see. Elemental Stormbringer Tempest damage is getting buffed by 15%. So the Stormbringer Shamans that were disappointed, your Tempest is going to hit really hard, I think. This is going to hit really, really hard. But again, it's a hard cast build of Elemental. DKs and Demon Hunters are getting buffed. I think at BGs it could be super fun, but in Arena, when there's multiple melee DPS, I say good luck. Resto Shaman, you got some PP buffs. Riptide Healing is getting buffed by 15%. I don't know what these asterisks are for. Or they were trying to make a face with starry eyes or something. Are they trying to tell us a sign to the Resto Shamans? Like somebody secretly snuck those in and they want us to know or something? But that's great. Healing Surge is also getting a 20% healing increase. So buffing all the healers that were on the lower end of the distribution. Great. Destruction Warlock. This looks scary. What is that? 20% more Chaos Bolt damage. 20% more Immolate damage. But Wither is going to be doing 25% less. So you're getting more burst, but less sustain. But I think that fits the profile for most Destrolocks. When you say Chaos Bolt buff, Destrolock happy. You say Immolate buff, they're like, meh, I don't care. Not a big deal. So I think this is definitely taking Destro in a direction that Destrolocks are going to be really happy about in PvP. For Arms Warrior, the Dogs of the Lob, Rend is getting a 15% buff, and Overpower is getting a 20% buff. So Arms Warrior getting some love on offense. Again, I think it was defense where it was falling a little bit more flat. But, you know, the best defense is more offense, maybe. I mean, the numbers are big enough that it definitely could be the case. And then Mountain Thane for Fury, looking at the hero talent tree balance here. Strength of the Mountain now increases the damage of Rampage and Bloodthirst by 45%, up from 30. So rather than just focusing on only the Thunderclap damage, which is cool, new animation, focusing more on like the core abilities of the kit is definitely a good move here. Again, the Blade Storms from Slayer, though, they do so much burst. I wonder if, like, again, Mountain Thane to me has always been like, if you can get a lot of targets stacked together and cleave and AoE, it's going to be pretty decent. But it's hard to do that in Arena. So it's a bit hard to do that. But I like that this is the types of changes that I wanted to see, that I was waiting for. So I think that overall, this is definitely going to get the game in a healthier position, open up a lot more options than basically the no changes that we saw in the finale patch note changes that I covered in my other video. If you want to see basically covering the race changes and everything else that's coming into patch 11.0.7. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the changes coming through for the next reset. If you did, like and thumbs up. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.